Just over a decade ago, Nigeria had about 100,000 phone lines, landlines, that is. Today, we have almost as many mobile phones as we have people. We skipped the landlines entirely and jumped straight into the digital age. Investors have a word for this, and it's called leapfrogging. My guest today understands that as he worked with Husk Power in 2023 to become Africa's first profitable mini grid company. Can solar mini grids bypass power lines? Let's talk about it. I am Emeka Okpokpara, and this is Connecting the Dots. Good day and welcome to another episode of Connecting the Dots. I'm joined by my good friend and a sector enthusiastic, Olu Aruike. Olu, how are you?
Thank you so much, America, and I'm great and hope you're doing well as well.
I am, and when I first got into the sector, there was a conversation around half of Nigerians don't have access to energy. That blew my mind coming from the United States where access to energy is guaranteed, except for very, very rural communities.
Right.
And when I found out that half of my countrymen don't have power, I was shocked at those numbers. But after living here for a while and really understanding the space, it was clear what the challenges and constraints were. Mini grids became the next best thing as a way to quickly get folks power and get it to them in a way that it's localized and you don't have to depend on the national grid and all the costs and all the issues that could come with the grid.
Right.
Your journey in the mini grid space started probably a decade ago or around a decade ago.
True.
How did you land there? And what has that been since?
Right. So I think, I mean, like you coming back home, I came back home from Madrid, from business school.
Why would you leave Madrid to come to Nigeria? I'm very confused.
So the backstory is a Ukrainian classmate of mine who was in the Shakhtar Donetsk feeder team in Ukraine, football feeder team, when Julius Agawa was the top striker for Shakhtar Donetsk. And that Ukrainian classmate of mine had also worked at McKinsey before business school. And
she was a footballer and
I mean, he was a football. I mean, so not everybody who starts, footballers have academies. Not everybody who starts makes it to the top stage, right? There's a statistics of how it goes from when you start from under 5 or something like that to make it to the under 18s, under 21s, and then the first team. But I guess he didn't make it through, and he chose a career at McKinsey before business school. And after business school, he's going to do quite a few things. But I remember him looking at me at the career fair in Madrid and saying, look, you have now very great education, but I mean, you have something that nobody in this room has, which is local knowledge of Nigeria. You were born and bred there, right? So I came back home, and a few weeks later, I joined RMI, and
as a Rocky Mountain Institute, right?
Yes, and working with Steve Doig and James Sherwood and Kelly Carlin and folks like that, and being like the guy on the ground and seeing a lot of these things myself firsthand in the most remote areas across the country. I mean, it was. Look, I had come from doing all of this finance, corporate finance, project finance, and all of those stuff. And I just started seeing the reality of what this actual situation was. It wasn't shocking to me because I also kind of grew up on the farm, at a girls' school a girls' secondary school that had a large farm. I lived there, part of my life in the beginning. Um, it wasn't shocking, but to actually now start seeing the true reality, having the mindset of out of business school out of Madrid.
Wait, so you went to a girls' secondary school?
No, I lived there because my parents was teaching there. So
So you just want to clarify.
no, I didn't. I went to one of the best boys' schools in the country.
Where's that? Got it. Give your school a shout out. Don't be shy.
Yeah, no, I'm a King's College old boy, right? So,
I feel like
so I mean that reality at that point in time, and seeing folks like who were in the sector and what they were trying to do. The mini grid regulations had just come in, so it was 2016, 2017, about 10 years ago, like you said, and then deciding that look, something has to give here. Again, before business school, I was a full-time bank. All right, given that facilities without much of a consideration to doing good. But in business school, I came fully across impact investing and what it means, right? I think schools in the US also do some kind of impact investing networks and stuff. And it became something I really wanted to do as well. And then from RMI and doing all of some of heavy lifting, trying to enable the sector to shine a light on it. And we did that at SMAP in 2017, and then we did a Share in 2018 in Lagos, brought together a lot of people in the room just to say, look, we have a journey, 20 cents per kilowatt hour in 2020 and stuff like that. And then I touched base with a female-led impact investor at some point, and the mandate was to find investments in RE sector or the renewable energy space, and we did finally invest. Just a few weeks after, just when I left. Before I left, we started the process to invest in some money in one of the leading metering solutions for off-grid renewable energy space at that time. And then that investment actually went in and closed and all of that stuff. And then Husk came calling after I taken a family emergency break, and the rest, like I say, is history. And 6 years of doing that. Um, I mean, more than half a century of mini grids deployed, almost 400 colleagues, and it's been doing and thousands of customers across 14 local governments out of 774 in 2 states. That's a lot of doing in that time, right? And what keeps me going is the opportunity to do more with the people I work with and the people we serve, seeing the transformation. And when people now say to me, is mini grid truly the least cost effective way to electrify parts of Nigeria without access to any grid? Without a doubt, of course. That is, but again, mini grids cannot go everywhere, right? So there are roles for solar home systems and even other types of technologies to play and allow those places to grow. But mini grids play a very key role in driving true sustainable and economic development and growth.
So I want to take a step back, right?
Yeah.
So you went to business school,
right?
And it sounds like you were very bullish on the idea, on the conversation you had with your friend, that you have local contacts of the Nigerian market, and you should come back to Nigeria. That must have been a very hard conversation for your people to hear. I'm sure everyone wanted you to stay on that side. Why were you so audacious to ignore that noise and come here and really dig into the sector?
So Eric Shell, I think Eric, who was Dean MBA in IE at that point in time, said there were 3 sets of people who came to business school, and one set was the dreamers. And to be honest, I really didn't want to go to business school at some point. I had degrees in engineering, because I was familiar calling from the onset. I always wondered why planes stayed in the sky, but that's a different story. So that's where the engineering quest
Came from, yeah.
stuck, right? And then, I had some time about going to Barredo to do all of that aeronautical engineering stuff. Didn't get there, but engineering stuck around me, and I ended up with degrees in engineering. But in business school, I think I'll now say I was a dreamer, right? I wasn't one of those who went there I had a plan I had a foolproof plan after I went there and, I had done banking for global banks for 6+ years, and I had learned a lot, you know. I think banking really shaped my view about what finance really means, and that finance rules the world, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in as a dreamer. I was open to, uh, what to immersing myself in the experience, and then coming out a much better person with how I approached even wanting to invest in, if I was going to invest anymore, or lead investments. It also made me think about things in a more entrepreneurial way. And entrepreneurship, and if anybody knows it, the true entrepreneurship is audacious and bold, right? So
Yeah.
in business school, we kind of also did a startup as well, and teached and trying to raise ideas. A lot of things will come out from that for some people, but that became me wanting to now build and create things.
So you more or less decided to take a bet on yourself.
I mean, there was, look, Nigeria, of course, having also lived in Europe before going to business school the first time, and having worked in places in Asia and been there, um, it was clear Nigeria had the largest opportunity in the world, right? It wasn't even my goal wasn't even for the power sector to be in the power space after business school. My goal was just to contribute. I was in business school when the euro and USD and foreign currencies, the exchange rates went haywire in
Mm-hmm.
2016 or 2015, 2016, and banks stopped lending in foreign currency,
Uh-huh.
which we used as to feel like I'm an ex-banker, which we used to do in the past. And it felt like there was I mean, Nigeria feels like there's a whole lot of opportunities here. If you look at the metrics, the numbers, the people, the spirit, the fact that there is opportunity, and this is what entrepreneurs use. The word they use is leapfrog. There are opportunities to leapfrog a lot of things, right? We saw it. I had friends who were now true entrepreneurs creating stuff, and then it was now time to also say, look, what can we actually create? So I was now more attracted to creating and building
As
and
opposed to,
taking a bet than opposed to just walking into things that were already existing. So even when coming back and the kind of jobs I were applying to, I wasn't looking for jobs that were in sectors where things were already established. I was now looking for jobs in impact investment firms.
so things that were non-existent a couple years ago,
Yeah.
and a way to create a path
Yes. Yeah.
for yourself and make a better in this thing called Nigeria. But obviously, impact doesn't pay the bills. And you'll probably also thought if you create this impact, the chances of getting handsomely rewarded for it are
Mhm.
much higher than if you just stayed this corporate side of the house, right?
No, no, absolutely. And see, look, entrepreneurship, one of the rules is you find a problem, a problem that thousands or hundreds of people have, and solve it. And once you solve it, then you get them to,
Pay for it
I wouldn't say pay you, reward you for that
for your
solution,
efforts.
right? That is helping them. You get recurring income, and that's how everybody who has created stuff either from scratch or from the middle, the tribes. If you also look at, I was looking at top Nigerian companies that have crossed 100 billion in revenue year on year. they're mostly service companies, retail companies, FMCG, power, the discos, right? Who are serving thousands of customers. Anybody who can create a solution and serve hundreds or thousands of customers and get recurring revenue, I mean, that's a pathway to wealth.
Revenue when you're sleeping. That's a good place to be.
Yeah. I
Tell,
mean,
tell me about your journey at Husk.
mhm.
You started out, Husk we started out in Husk in 2020, right?
Yeah, 2020, yes.
2020, and Husk was in the same league, was considered an international brand coming in to do work in Nigeria. But with your leadership, sometimes I even forget Husk is an international brand because you've been there for so long and you've had staying power. How have you been able to ensure that you still bring the international context and also bring in the local knowledge to be able to create what we call here a local firm,
Right,
and you're now able to scale?
right.
Because a few years ago, when we had in 2023, Husk was announced as a profitable mini grid company, the first.
Mhm.
So how has that journey been?
So, look, and I think one of my profiles I've written local back in the day when I was still forming my own jersey. Um, I've always had that outlook, right? Use global solutions to solve local problems in local contexts, right? And Husk was a very great example. Actually, my first coming in touch with Husk was in 2019 when a friend of mine who owns a bookshop chain, and now runs one of the sector enablers funded by Shell Foundation, and who had worked with Husk in in Tanzania, had introduced me to the Husk team, and we did some initial assessment work for them, and then I actually started with Husk as, I think it was business operations manager, and then when I joined in 2020, just a few weeks later, COVID hit, shut down a few things. But then we're able to stay, pick it up after COVID. My first mandate was, of course, to create visibility with the stakeholders, build out a team. And I succeeded in doing that in 2020, early 2021, and then became country manager, right? That was now more full time because now there's a team. You're responsible for people. You're responsible for a brand, right? That has now been introduced into the Nigerian market. People yes, we had Indian presence. We had done quite a lot of work in a similar market. We're also kind of market leaders in a similar market. Now transiting that and then, moving the needle and then becoming in the first year of actual operations, becoming a bit more profitable on the mini grids took some doing. We just applied lessons from what who the guys I've continued to work with day on day, Indian elder brothers, because they had the same challenges that we had. We borrowed laws from them,
Mhm.
and we took the title of largest off-grid market in the world from them. So it was easy to apply those things in this similar demography and things, and find a lot of young folks who I've worked with who understood the mission, right? And then fast forward to 2023, at the end of that year, we actually raised the largest amount of funding for any private sector mini grid company, 100 million. Um,
And was that specifically for Nigeria or
it
across?
was it was for the global operations, but two-third was for Africa, right? 40 million in equity and just over 40 million in equity and 60 million in debt, right? And that gave us fuel in 2024.
Mhm.
And just a few months ago, we got awarded for Mini Grid Project of the Year based off of that work that we did in 2024. And we went at a pace of deployment that we didn't even believe. And we just kept going. And of course, being in the sector, external actors, we're also watching what was happening. Electricity Act, there's program going to come up and how we could support and embed with those things. It's been a great journey, like you said, and like I've said in a few places too. The challenge is local. It's like politics, right? Politics is always local. People have to understand that. But the challenge is local, and the solution has to be locally generated. Global best practices borrowed from elsewhere and adapted to fit. That is what essentially Husk has done here, using folks or working with folks who were born and lived the challenge. So we understand the mission, and 99.99% of my colleagues in the country are all Nigerians. Yes, we work with Indian colleagues every day. I mean, they're almost 5 hours ahead in terms of different time difference, but the work synergy on a day to day is unparalleled. It's what has helped us thrive, or we've stood on their shoulders to be able to move quicker. And for all that is said, I think that is what gave us really the feel to continue to um, grow as much as we can. For our next phase, and we've been vocal about commitments to Nigeria. Even in 2023, we've committed 1,000 mini grids to be built
A
here.
thousand mini grids.
And then quite recently, have now repositioned to an AI-enabled DR platform, targeting 2 gigawatts of deployment across commercial, communities, and residential by 2030 across the global south. What that means is we've come a long way from just being a mini grid company. Now we're leveraging tech. Again, remember I use an entrepreneurial buzzword, LEAPFROG.
Mm-hmm.
We are now leveraging tech to help us, do a lot more things more efficiently, more.
Such as, can you give some
So
examples?
predictive algorithms on how power is used and how power can be allocated to various customers that we serve in multi-customer environments and stuff like that. Um,
So just
Optimizing lifespan of, optimizing life cycles for assets and
actually,
components, right? That is also something we've leveraged AI to be able to do. And of course, you can't do mini grids or serve multi customers across multi locations without remote monitoring.
of
That is
course.
something we also have in-house proprietary um, um, capabilities with IoT.
So are
So
you able to see if a battery is about to go down, if a solar
of
panel has
course,
issues?
no, of
So
course.
if I buy it before it goes down, you already know and you come and replace it before there's a
So
challenge.
no, so the battery lifespan is the OEM's work. Our work is to optimize it that you can actually maximize utilization during the life
Mm,
cycle, right? And get the best out of it during the life cycle.
mm,
So this just works in being predictive around power use.
use and all
You
that.
can AI does this for us on our
Mm.
phones these days as well.
So
So it's what we've also done. Yeah.
okay, that's good to know. I one of the things that really pushed, or to your word, leapfrog the Pakistan power market
Mhm.
was net metering, right? You were
Yeah.
able to get that in and really were able to sell power on off peak time and all of that.
Yes. Yes.
Do your do you have solutions where your mini grids are able to do something similar?
At the moment in Nigeria, so a couple of things we're working on with a couple of partners, including virtual power plants trials or pilots. The net metering, we're watching the space, right? The net metering regulations, one of the very most forward-looking regulators in the country, has also been interacting with folks like us and others across the sector to say, does this look right from your experience? And we've given our feedback, right? Or inputs. So we're waiting for those laws to come into place.
But if it's a closed system, a mini grid, do you need NERC's approval?
Not on the mini grids. Can you do net metering? Maybe not. So net metering is much larger, right? So net metering to the
Okay,
grid,
well,
right?
that's where it has to be an integrated play
Yes, yes.
rather than, and that requires to prove because you're
Rest,
now
of
onto
course.
the
You
grid.
are now evacuating what you are. You're not. You're going beyond your exclusive radius,
Mhm.
quote unquote, right? So yeah. So let's see what the because regulation, right? Regulation is bedrock, and why mini grids in Nigeria have thrived is because you have a solid regulator who solidly has backed the regulations it put out firstly in 2016, went ahead to review it in 2023, continues to stand by it, right? That's why, to be honest, you look at how companies like Husk have come into the market, it is because we saw regulation
Mhm.
that made sense for us to cost-effective tariffs and stuff like that, and that answered a lot of the questions that our investors, our shareholders and board would probably ask us. I would say, why Nigeria? You know, the Husks, the other companies like us who had, maybe foreign presence and then coming in here was backed by that regulation.
Mm.
And that's the part that regulation and policy plays to attract folks to invest in the sector in the country.
Technology seems to be one of the unique selling points that Husk brings to the conversation,
Mhm.
and that, and given that that's your USP, do you have difficulties collecting from customers in the last mile where there's no MTN network, there's no Airtel, there's no whoever, there's no real good connection out there? How do you ensure you collect based on the power you've delivered to the customers?
So we've um I think collections is almost 100%. We are sorry, my friends in the discourse, but we are much better than the discourse. Way better. But
So
there's room for improvement.
do you use smart meters?
Yeah, smart metering is the first part. Remote monitoring. I own in-house IoT, of course, integrated. But there remains a lot of room for improvements, right? And the opportunity to leapfrog. And I just before we started, I want to also highlight what I was telling you. There is a large room for tech companies to continue to help us improve in those kind of things. Local tech companies, by the way, because they also understand the challenges. And if you know that Nigeria has built fintechs fintechs that are what they call them unicorns.
Hmm.
And
I think Flutterwave yesterday
there is
just
an
acquired
opportunity.
someone.
Sorry?
Flutterwave, yes, they just
I
acquired
mean, Flutterwave, the Shola and Co
SpaceX.
from Paystack are now a Paystack group. They've done so much that, I mean, these days, collection of cash or collection in the last mile on the financial side, I can tell you, is sorted. People don't need banks. We don't need banks. Not like we don't need banks, but the opportunity and one of the things that we've done for our customers, and I think other companies have started following that, is convenience with payments. And that is
Mhm.
because these fintechs have cracked the code of last mile
Delivery.
financial services for folks in those areas, even as much as being, taking transactions offline, I would think. But then there's an opportunity to integrate with energy and fintech. And this is a conversation I've had in the past with some fintechs. But the thing usually is the fear to get into this last mile, what can happen, who is there, uh, what are the outlook, but you never know until you get there. And if you can deploy as much technology as you can there that works, then I think I can guarantee you it works. And look, MTN, Airtel, all those networks may not be there, but Nigerians are watching football every day in those places. How are they doing it? They're watching football in those places every day. Look, you and I might miss female football or AFCON, and they don't. They're watching football in those places. So if they're able to get football either streamed through cable service, and stuff, and network can get there.
But there's a conversation that the level of education in those places is not so high. How that's a general perception, right? Just given
Yeah,
global
absolutely.
statistics. How do you get them to educate someone who is in the quote unquote back beyond to pay their tariff, and someone here in a mansion in Maitama refuses to pay their tariff? So how do you unlock that? Is it tech?
There's 5 C's of credit, right? This is the
Not
ex-banker
anchoring you.
coming. There's 5 C's of credit, and there's one around, think that also then speaks to behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Willing to pay and unable to pay, unable to pay and unwilling to pay. That there's that part as well, and there's able to pay and unwilling to pay, and that is character. A C in 5 C's of credit. So you have to understand that character also plays a role. So, foundationally, people are how you're trained, how you perceive things, how you are refined to say, look, if I take something, I pay for it. That is character, right? So those things may just be a function of character. And I can tell you that in small units in villages where we work, character is people try to hold that thing, hold their behavior and self. They try to because everybody knows everybody, and you don't want to be seen as the guy that misbehaves, right? So there's a lot of checks.
But I would argue that technology also helps that because everyone's smart metered, and you can sit in your house and disconnect me.
Yeah, that's
Facebook
one.
can't do it.
That's one, but technology is man-made. And anything man has made, man can unmake. But character cannot be unmade. If the fact that, you can have all the smart metering and stuff, but people, we have, you check it. There are a lot of laws in developed countries that guides people, but still you have people stepping out of line every now and then. But character and the right technology and the right relationships is very, very important in this case. Again, because we are selling service in rural areas.
Given that most renewable companies or most developers would see themselves as an infrastructure play, you've changed it, and you're saying you're a service play. Where do you see the sector, this renewable energy sector, or the sector in general, actually, over the next 5 years,
I think,
both from a Husk perspective and just from a general Nigeria perspective?
The opportunity in Nigeria is huge. In 5 years, we'll not cover it, right? Firstly, it would need to take mini grids, other technologies, and maybe some grid expansion in some areas where it is cost effective. And then we can start getting there. But you cannot take away the fact that the government and its actors have been intentional, right policy, right backgrounds for folks like us to come in and flourish. There's a lot of movement in the energy space in general across Nigeria. The capitalists are also realizing that there is an opportunity here, and we're all coming to the party. Local currency financing is also coming to the party. Our money is believing in what we're doing, and that is signs that the great times are here. Every sector in every country that has done very well has had its own capital playing a role, right? And with that being said, Husk wants to go to public market in the next few years by way of an IPO. And what we're doing in Nigeria this is a very critical market for us, right? Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa is a huge play for Husk, and you could see in our commitments that are public and how vocal we've been about it. And in the next 5 years, we want to continue to play a role in supporting the governments at federal level or subnationals in their electrification plans, and ensuring that we're creating thousands of jobs taking thousands of diesel generators offline, and then employing thousands of people. We will do this in a people-oriented and sustainable manner towards our journey for, owning 2 gigawatt of DR assets, leveraging AI.
That's over how long?
In the next 5 years.
Next 5
up
years.
until 2030. That is essentially the goal here. And the 2 gigawatt is across the global south, meaning, Asia and Africa, where we have
What's the
large
projection
upgrade
for
markets.
Nigeria for that 2 gigawatts?
Nigeria will take a very huge chunk of that, right? Because until Nigeria stops being the largest upgrade market in the world, the opportunities here. We've already mentioned 1,000 grids.
Mini grids.
Yes, mini grids, isolated mini grids. There's a number we've also taken for both interconnected mini grids, CNI, serving residential customers over time as well, and PUE and e-mobility and all of that stuff. But I can tell you that Nigeria already has committed. For Nigeria, Husk is already on the pathway to actualizing 250 megawatt of assets, which was based on an MOU we signed with the Abalu and his RIA team 2 years ago. We're now on that pathway to achieving that. And the next pathway would then to say 500 megawatts and then 1 gigawatt. If Nigeria, continues to play the role it has continued to play in creating the right environment for players like us to drive.
Last question. How many megawatts you currently have in Nigeria?
I think now, and the guys continue to add more and more every other month. I tend to lose count. However, we're now over 10 megawatts of consolidated assets. A few years ago, I had to make contributions to some work for Nasarawa State, and in the work we've done across 9 out of 13 local governments. And then it was 7 megawatts and over 100 kilometers of distribution network.
Wow, that's super impressive.
Yeah.
No wonder you're number one. Thank you so much, Olu.
Thank you so much.
Coming to the Connecting the Dots podcast. And we had you on 2023. We'll have you on before 2029. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.